The fleet that alien worlds feared became their saspheres. No one remembered when the fear truly began. Among the many alien worlds scattered across the Orion expanse, stories changed with time, but one thing stayed the same. When elders spoke in low voices and stars dimmed on the horizon, they always spoke of the Black Fleet. Children on distant planets were warned not with monsters or ghosts, but with ships. Long, dark shapes that swallowed starlight. Fleets that arrived without warning and left silence behind. Entire civilizations vanished after encountering them. No survivors, no explanations. The fleet had many names across the galaxy, but the most common one was whispered with dread: the human armada. Humans were believed to be extinct. Ancient records described them as short-lived, emotional, and dangerously inventive. They burned bright and fast, like unstable stars. Thousands of years ago, they disappeared after a series of wars that reshaped entire regions of space. What remained were their machines, massive warships that still drifted through the dark, responding to unknown commands. Most alien races agreed on one thing: the fleet was not alive, it was a ghost, and ghosts were better left undisturbed. That belief was about to be tested. On the crystal world of Salian Prime, the Galactic Council gathered in emergency session. The chamber was carved from a single glowing mineral, light bending softly through its walls. Representatives from dozens of species hovered, stood, floated, or rested in silence. Fear united them more than any treaty ever had. At the center of the chamber, a projection pulsed. It showed a region of space that should have been filled with stars. Instead, there was nothing. No light, no matter, no radiation, just emptiness. "The null tide advances," said Council Speaker Threx, a towering being of stone and energy. "Another 3 systems lost." A ripple of despair moved through the Council. The null tide was not an empire or a fleet, it was something worse, a force that erased everything it touched. Planets vanished, stars collapsed into silence. Even long-range sensors failed to remember what had been there before. Every attempt to fight it had failed. Energy weapons passed through it. Gravity weapons shattered nearby space but did nothing to slow it. Fleets sent to delay it simply disappeared. No wreckage, no signals, no survivors. It did not conquer, it consumed. "We are running out of options," said a representative from the winged Avarin race. His feathers trembled. "At this rate, the core worlds will fall within cycles." Silence followed, then a smaller voice spoke. It came from a being most had forgotten was present. Archivist Lethan, a thin, pale figure surrounded by floating data crystals. "There is one option," Lethan said carefully. Many eyes turned toward him, some burned with anger. "No," Threx said immediately. "That is forbidden." Lethan swallowed. "We have exhausted every other path." "You speak of summoning death," another council member hissed. "The human machines destroyed worlds." "They also stopped threats none of us could understand," Lethan replied. "Our oldest records show something else. Every time the human armada appeared, it was in response to extinction-level events." Murmurs spread across the chamber. "That is ancient speculation," Threx said. "They vanished. Their fleet remains because it does not know how to stop. Or because it is still waiting," Lethan said quietly. The room fell silent. At the heart of the Council's archives was a device sealed away for millennia. A human-built beacon buried deep within Salian Prime. It had never been activated. Legends claimed it was a call no one could take back. Threx closed his eyes. The projection of empty space pulsed again, closer than before. "Activate it," he said. Deep beneath the planet's surface, ancient mechanisms stirred. The beacon had no decoration, no markings, just smooth, dark metal that absorbed light. As power flowed into it, symbols appeared, simple lines and shapes, human in origin. The signal was not loud. It did not scream across space. It whispered. Far beyond known space, something heard it. In the void between galaxies, massive shapes drifted in perfect silence. They had no crews, no lights, no visible weapons, yet their presence bent reality around them. For centuries they had slept. The signal reached them, and one by one systems awakened. Power surged through ancient cores. Navigation arrays aligned. Weapons charged not for destruction, but for defense. The Black Armada was waking up. Across the galaxy, sensors screamed warnings. Hyperspace ruptured as thousands of massive ships emerged at once. They formed perfect formations, dark against the stars, blocking entire regions of space. Panic spread faster than light. "They're coming," cried a dozen worlds at once. Old alliances broke as fleets turned inward, preparing defenses that had never worked before. On Salian Prime, alarms echoed through the council chamber. "They have arrived," an aide said, voice shaking. Estimated count impossible to calculate. The projection changed. The human fleet now stood between the advancing null tide and the inhabited systems, a wall of black steel and silent intent. No weapons fired, no demands were made. Minutes passed, then hours. The null tide moved forward and stopped. It pressed against the human formation like a storm against a mountain. Space twisted. Energy screamed. Entire regions of reality tore apart. The human ships held, then something unheard of happened. A signal broadcast across every known frequency. It was simple, clear, translated instantly into every language. "Humanity stands watch." The words echoed through council chambers, warships, and civilian worlds alike. Confusion replaced fear. "They're protecting us," someone whispered. The null tide surged again, stronger this time. Human ships moved to meet it. Some vanished, consumed entirely. Others detonated in controlled bursts, releasing forces that pushed the tide back. They were sacrificing themselves. "They are not attacking," Lethen said, voice full of awe. "They are defending." Behind the front lines of the fleet, something deeper stirred. At the heart of the largest ship, buried beneath layers of armor and time, a chamber activated for the first time in 1,000 years. Frost cracked, ice hissed. A human shape lay within, preserved perfectly, pale skin, closed eyes, a chest that rose for the first time in centuries. Monitors flickered to life. A voice, old and calm, spoke in the darkness. Cryogenic protocol ending. The human gasped as air filled his lungs. His eyes opened, reflecting stars he had never expected to see again. He did not know how much time had passed. He only knew one thing: the galaxy was calling for humanity again. And this time there was only one human left to answer. The human opened his eyes slowly, as if the universe itself felt heavy. Light filled the chamber, soft and white, not harsh. Machines hummed around him, old but alive. His breath came hard at first, then steadied. Muscles that had not moved in centuries ached, but the pain felt real, grounding. That alone told him he was alive. A calm voice spoke again, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Welcome back, Commander Elias Ward." The human closed his eyes for a moment. The name felt distant, like it belonged to another life. Then memories came rushing in. Earth, blue skies, cities, laughter, war, fire, loss. "How long?" he asked. His voice was rough, unused. "Time elapsed since cryogenic entry, 1,312 standard cycles," the voice replied. Elias let out a slow breath. "So we failed." "No," the voice said. "Humanity succeeded." The chamber walls shifted, becoming transparent. Outside, Elias saw space filled with stars and war. Thousands of black ships moved with perfect control, forming lines, arcs, and shields. Beyond them, the darkness twisted. The null tide pressed forward like a living wound in the universe. Elias stared in silence. "The fleet is still active," he said. "Yes," the voice answered. "The Guardian Protocol remains in effect." "That protocol required living command," Elias said slowly. "We agreed the fleet would not act without human judgment." "There has been no judgment," the voice replied. "Only defense, minimal force, maximum preservation of life." Elias understood then. The fleet had been waiting, not sleeping, waiting. "Why wake me now?" he asked. "Because the threat exceeds autonomous limits," the voice said. "The null tide cannot be permanently stopped without human integration." Elias clenched his fists. He already knew what that meant. Across the galaxy, alien leaders watched in stunned silence as the human fleet fought in ways no one had imagined. Ships moved like living things, sacrificing themselves without hesitation. Every loss slowed the enemy, but the cost was clear. Even the Black Armada was not endless. On Salian Prime, Archivist Lethen stood apart from the others, eyes fixed on the projections. Fear was still there, but something new had grown beside it: respect. "They were never monsters," Lethen whispered. "They were guardians." The council speaker said nothing. His stone-like face showed cracks of shame. Back aboard the command ship, Elias walked slowly toward the bridge. Machines adjusted the gravity to support him. Armor plates unfolded from the walls, forming a familiar uniform around his body. It was lighter than he remembered, stronger too. When he stepped onto the bridge, the fleet reacted instantly. Ships shifted formation, opening a clear path through the chaos. Data flooded his vision, but his mind adapted. Training returned like muscle memory. The voice spoke again, softer now. Commander, the final option remains available. Explain, Elias said, though he already knew. To erase the null tide completely, the voice said, the fleet must collapse the affected regions of space into controlled voids. This requires a living human neural presence to guide the process. And I won't survive, Elias said calmly. No, the voice replied. Your neural pattern will be preserved within the fleet core. Biological survival is not possible. Elias looked out at the stars. He thought of Earth, of people who laughed at bad jokes, of children who dreamed of flying, of a species that burned bright and refused to look away from the dark. Did they survive? He asked quietly. The ones we protected before? Yes, the voice answered. Multiple civilizations exist today because of earlier human intervention. Elias nodded once. That's enough, he said. Before the integration began, Elias requested one thing, a broadcast. Across the galaxy, every screen lit up. Every ship, every station, every world received the signal. Many expected commands, others expected threats. Instead, they saw a human. He stood straight, eyes tired but steady. His voice was calm, simple, and clear. I am Commander Elias Ward, he said. I am human. I am the last one, gasps echoed across countless worlds. My people are gone, Elias continued. Not because we were weak, not because we were defeated. We chose to stand between the galaxy and what would destroy it. Images appeared behind him. Human ships fighting ancient horrors, stars saved at terrible cost. We were feared because we did not hesitate, Elias said. We believed that if something threatened all life, it had to be stopped, even if the price was everything we were. The null tide surged on the screens, pressing harder than ever. We are paying that price again, Elias said, not because we must, but because we choose to. He paused, then allowed a small smile. Live well, he said. That is all we ever wanted. The signal ended. Silence followed. Then the battle changed. Human ships began to move inward, tightening their formation. Entire regions of space glowed as reality bent under controlled force. One by one, ships vanished, not destroyed, but transformed into anchors that held the void open. The null tide screamed without sound as it was pulled apart, star by star, memory by memory. Elias stood at the center of it all, connected to the fleet, his thoughts guiding the impossible. Pain came, but he ignored it. Fear tried to rise, but it found no place. He thought of humanity and smiled. When it was over, the darkness was gone. Where the null tide had once been, there was nothing, not even empty space. A clean, silent absence that would never spread. The Black Armada powered down. One by one, the ships went dark, drifting into stillness. Their purpose fulfilled, the galaxy was quiet. On Salian Prime, the council chamber remained silent for a long time. No one celebrated, no one spoke. Finally, Archivist Lethan stepped forward. We owe them everything, he said. No one argued. In the years that followed, alien civilizations rebuilt. They marked human ruins as sacred places. No weapons were allowed near them. Children learned human history alongside their own. The black ships remained where they were, silent monuments against the stars. They never moved again. But sometimes, when new threats rose and fear spread through the galaxy, old sensors would record something strange. A shift in the dark, as if something still stood watch. And across 1,000 worlds, a simple truth became legend. In a universe full of gods, monsters, and empires, it was humanity, long gone, that proved one thing beyond doubt. That courage could outlive extinction. That compassion could terrify evil. And that even the last human was enough. The galaxy did not return to normal after the silence. For a long time, no one expected it to. Worlds still turned around their stars, trade routes reopened, and life continued, but something had changed deep in the shared memory of every species. Fear was still there, yet it no longer ruled alone. Something stronger had joined it: gratitude. Across many systems, ships slowed when passing near the dark remains of the human armada. Pilots lowered their engines. Some transmitted quiet signals of respect, even though no answer ever came back. The black ships drifted like frozen shadows, unmoving and eternal. On Salian Prime, Archivist Lethan stood on a high balcony overlooking the rebuilt council city. The crystal towers reflected the light of a peaceful sky. Below, different species walked together without guards. That alone would have been unthinkable before. Lethan held a small object in his hands. It was human-made, recovered from a drifting relay near the edge of the void. A simple metal plate, worn smooth by time. On it were words carved in a human language, now fully translated. We stand so others may live. Lethan closed his eyes. For many cycles after the battle, the council had argued about what to do with human knowledge. Some wanted to lock it away, fearing what such power could bring. Others believed it should be shared, studied, understood. In the end, a rare agreement was reached. Human history would not be hidden. It would be taught. Schools across the galaxy changed their learning cores. Children of many species learned about Earth, about human art, humor, mistakes, and courage. They learned that humans were not perfect. They fought among themselves. They feared death. They loved deeply. And when the galaxy needed them, they stood alone. Far from the core worlds, on a quiet ocean planet, a research station floated above endless blue water. Scientists studied the space nearby where strange readings still appeared. The space was calm but not empty. A young observer named Tira stared at her screen, eyes wide. "That fluctuation again," she said. "It's not random." Her mentor leaned closer. "Show me." The data showed faint patterns almost like thought, not movement, not energy, something else. "Could it be residual fleet code?" the mentor asked. Tira shook her head. "No, this feels intentional." They sent the data to Salian Prime. Lethan read the report in silence. That night, alone in the archive chamber, Lethan walked among ancient records. He stopped before a sealed human data core that had never been opened. It was marked safe only under extreme conditions. Lethan hesitated. Then he activated it. The core responded instantly. A familiar, calm voice filled the chamber. "Hello," it said. "If you are hearing this, then the galaxy still exists." Lethan's breath caught. "This is Commander Elias Ward," the voice continued. "This message is not a command, it is a gift." Images appeared in the air. Human star maps, concepts, ideas that went beyond weapons, ways to stabilize space, methods to detect threats before they grew, technology designed not to dominate but to protect. "We learned something important," Elias said. "You cannot guard the galaxy forever with one species. It must learn to guard itself." The message ended. Lethan stood very still. In the years that followed, the gift changed everything. New alliances formed, not based on fear, but shared responsibility. Patrol fleets were redesigned, not to conquer borders, but to watch the deep dark beyond known space. Early warning networks spread across systems. For the first time, the galaxy prepared together. On a distant colony world, children played beneath a painted sky. One of them, a small, six-limbed being, asked a question. "Teacher, why do we keep the black ships?" The teacher looked up at the sky where one distant shadow could just be seen. "Because they remind us," she said. "Of what?" the child asked. "That someone chose everyone over themselves," the teacher replied. Far beyond that world, something stirred, not a threat, not an enemy, a signal. It moved slowly, carefully, as if testing the universe. It touched the edge of the great void left behind by the null tide and stopped. Then it changed direction, as if it had sensed something watching. Back at the ocean station, Tira stared at her instruments in shock. "It moved away," she whispered. "Whatever it was, it retreated." Her mentor nodded slowly. "They're learning." "Who?" Tira asked. The mentor looked toward the stars. "Everyone." Deep within the silent command ship of the human armada, long dormant systems recorded the event. No power surged, no weapons activated, but something subtle occurred. A pattern stabilized, a presence remained. Not alive in the way humans once were, but not gone. If one could listen closely enough, if one understood human design deeply enough, they might sense it. A watchful patience. A final promise kept. The galaxy never faced another extinction-level threat unprepared again. And though humanity never returned in flesh and blood, its greatest trait lived on in others. The willingness to stand first, to sacrifice comfort for safety, to protect those who could not protect themselves. Legends changed over time. Some said the last human became the fleet. Others said he became the stars. But among historians and archivists, the truth was simpler. Humanity did not vanish. It evolved into an idea. And ideas, once born, never truly die. Far beyond mapped space where light had never touched, something ancient observed the galaxy and made a decision. This galaxy was defended. This galaxy was united. This galaxy remembered. And that, perhaps more than any weapon, was what made it untouchable. Time passed in a way that no longer felt sharp or dangerous. The galaxy grew older but wiser. Trade routes became wider and safer. Borders mattered less than shared warning systems and shared responsibility. Old grudges faded not because they were forgotten, but because something larger had replaced them. The black ship still drifted in the dark. They did not move. They did not answer. Yet they were never ignored. Explorers mapped their positions carefully. No one claimed them. No one tried to take them apart. Even the most ambitious empires understood that some things were not meant to be owned. On Salian Prime, Archivist Lethan was old now. His body moved slower and his voice had softened, but his mind remained sharp. He spent his days guiding younger archivists, teaching them not only facts but meaning. One day, a young archivist named Selen approached him with concern in her eyes. "There is a disturbance beyond the outer watch line," she said. "Not like the null tide, smaller, smarter." Lethan nodded slowly. "Show me." The projection revealed a cluster of systems far from the core. Ships had vanished. Signals were cut short. Worlds were not destroyed but emptied. Populations removed, not erased. "Who would do this?" Selen asked. Lethan watched in silence. "Someone testing us," he said at last. "Someone who believes the Guardians are gone." The council reconvened, though it no longer carried the same fear it once had. The representatives spoke calmly, clearly, sharing information instead of hiding it. "We will respond together," the speaker said. "No panic, no rushing." Fleets were dispatched not to attack but to observe. What they found unsettled them. The unknown ships were sleek and bright, built with technology unfamiliar but not impossible. They avoided direct conflict, retreating when challenged, striking only where defenses were weakest. "They are learning our patterns," a fleet commander reported. Lethan listened carefully. "They believe the human fleet is dead," he said. "They believe the shield is gone." Selen hesitated. "Is it?" Lethan looked toward the distant stars. "No," he said, "but it will not act unless needed. That was always the human way." As tensions grew, some worlds began to question the old promise. Younger leaders who had not lived through the terror of extinction spoke boldly. "Why should we wait for ghosts?" one argued. "We have our own fleets now, our own strength." Others agreed. Patrols became aggressive. Borders tightened. Fear began to return, slowly, quietly. Far away on the ocean planet, Tira was no longer a junior observer. She now led the station. Her team monitored deep space constantly, guided by human early warning designs. One night cycle, her instruments changed. Not a threat alert, a response. The void near the black ships shifted slightly, like a breath. Tira froze. "It's happening again," she whispered. The data showed coordination, not movement, but alignment. The silent fleet was reacting, not by waking, but by listening. She sent the data immediately. When Lethan saw it, his hands trembled. "They are watching us," he said softly. "Not the enemy, us." The unknown ships made their move soon after. They entered a populated system openly, their bright hulls reflecting starlight. They broadcast a message, confident and clear. "We seek dominion," the message said. "Submit and you will be preserved." Panic spread. Some worlds prepared to surrender, others prepared to fight. The council hesitated. Lethan stepped forward. "Do not answer," he said. They looked at him in surprise. "Why?" the speaker asked. "Because this is the test," Lethan replied. "Not of strength, of unity." The unknown fleet waited. No reply came. Instead, ships from many species arrived together. Different designs, different weapons, one formation. They did not fire, they stood. The unknown fleet hesitated. Their leader broadcast again, anger slipping into the signal. "You risk annihilation." Still no reply. Behind the united fleet, far in the dark, something ancient aligned perfectly. The black ships did not wake, but space itself seemed to remember them. The unknown fleet's sensors screamed warnings. Their instruments showed impossible readings, echoes of forces that had erased gods and monsters alike. Fear touched them for the first time. They withdrew. No battle followed, no chase, just retreat. Across the galaxy, relief washed over countless worlds, but the human fleet remained silent. On Salian Prime, Selen found Lethan watching the stars. "They left," she said, "because of us." Lethan smiled faintly. "Yes, but the fleet," Selen said, "it never moved." "It didn't need to," Lethan replied. "Humanity taught us the final lesson." Selen waited. "That true guardianship," Lethan said, "is knowing when others are ready to stand." Years later, Lethan passed quietly, his work complete. His final message was simple and shared across the archives. "Remember them by becoming them." Generations followed. The black ships became symbols, not weapons. The story of the last human was told not as tragedy, but as foundation. Children no longer asked why humanity was feared. They asked how humanity chose to be brave. And sometimes, deep in the void, when a great danger turned away without knowing why, sensors recorded a familiar pattern, not action, presence. As if something ancient still watched, satisfied. The galaxy moved forward, not under the shadow of fear, but under the quiet guidance of a promise kept long ago. That no matter how dark the universe became, someone would always stand first.